Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Wednesday. Outrage in Minneapolis.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
The FBI is investigating a fatal shooting by an ICE agent.
We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting.
Why Americans' actions are sparking anxiety in Greenland.
We've had over 400 cases of influenza A in just my area.
Plus, hospitals strained and stretched, but they get creative. Are patients okay with it?
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
Tensions are high in Minnesota after an ICE agent shot and killed a 37-year-old woman during an immigration crackdown. Now, the images are disturbing. They were caught on camera and could be upsetting for you to watch. The Department of Homeland Security confirms the unidentified woman was shot in her car after allegedly trying to run over law enforcement officers. DHS claims a federal agent, fearing for his own life, opened fire.
It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle.
The mayor of Minneapolis says the self-defense justification cannot be supported.
They are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, that is.
The mayor is now demanding that ICE agents leave the city. The shooting happened just 4 blocks from where African-American George Floyd was killed by a white police officer in 2020, sparking nationwide demonstrations. Well, a lot of other moving parts with the American seizure of 2 ships carrying Venezuelan oil. One is a Russian-flagged vessel in the North Atlantic. Now, at the same time, the Trump administration is ramping up talk of buying Greenland. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon now on the Venezuela situation and the classified briefings in Congress. Hey, Joy.
Hey, Sandy. Well, after the capture of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, the Trump administration is moving very fast to control that country's oil, from selling it to seizing 2 tankers in an early morning raid. Dramatic pictures posted by the Trump administration show the U.S. Coast Guard boarding a Russian-flagged oil tanker after chasing it in the North Atlantic for 2 weeks and risking a conflict with the Kremlin. Moscow officials angrily called the U.S. seizure outright piracy. Another vessel captured in the Caribbean, U.S. forces seen rappelling onto the deck of an empty vessel called the Sophia. Both ships accused of violating U.S. sanctions after the Trump administration ordered a blockade of Venezuelan oil, capturing its president Nicolas Maduro in a daring raid, accusing him of operating a narco-terrorist regime.
So our military is prepared to continue this. As he said, the president, when he speaks, he means it. He's not messing around.
It comes as President Donald Trump says he's in charge of Venezuela and will control its oil, posting the country will turn over 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. The administration claims it has tremendous leverage to force the socialist government to become an ally.
We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime.
After a classified briefing, several lawmakers are critical of Trump's attempt to reshape the world order.
This is an insane plan. They are talking about stealing the Venezuelan oil at gunpoint.
I am totally dissatisfied about their answers of going into other countries.
Sandy, the Trump administration intends to oversee the sale of Venezuela's oil indefinitely as President Trump plans to meet with major U.S. oil executives Friday about restarting drilling in Venezuela. Sandy?
Okay, Joy, thank you. And Donald Trump's strategy to dominate the Western Hemisphere appears to include plans to take over Greenland. And since events in Venezuela, Greenlanders no longer consider his words empty threats. Watching closely, Russia, China, and Canada. CTV's Judy Trin on the strategic importance of the island at the top of the world. Judy.
Sandy, after refusing to rule out military force, the United States is now discussing how to buy Greenland. Greenland's vast expanse contains valuable, untapped natural resources. U.S. President Donald Trump covets the territory in the name of national security.
He views it in the best interest of the United States to deter Russian and Chinese aggression in the Arctic region. And so that's why his team is currently talking about what a potential purchase would look like.
The White House has not set a price. It prefers to acquire Greenland through diplomacy, but will not rule out using military force. Greenlanders like Inuit activist Aju Peter fear Trump will attack her birthplace, like he did in Venezuela.
It startled me. Some time ago, I didn't take it seriously, but now seeing what the President of the United States can do, it's a real threat.
The semi-autonomous Danish territory is home to 56,000 people, protected by NATO.
If the Americans attack or try to annex Greenland, Denmark will have to invoke Article 5 in NATO that says the NATO countries have to come and help us against that attack. The Americans would, of course, veto that, and then NATO would be finished.
Greenland shares a border with Canada on Hans Island in the Arctic Ocean. Now both have faced American threats of annexation.
We stand with Denmark, we stand with Greenland. Our closest partnership is with the United States, and we'll work with everybody to make sure that we move forward together.
The Prime Minister says Canada, as part of NATO, can protect Greenland from Russian and Chinese threats. But Sandy, what the military alliance can't do is protect member nations from an ally.
Okay, Judy in Ottawa. Judy, thank you. Mark Carney is heading to China next week to talk trade and security in the middle of a potential collision course between China and the U.S. over Venezuelan oil. Now, China, you should remember, is Venezuela's main oil buyer. As tensions swirl, CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver looks at this important first visit by a Canadian Prime Minister in nearly 10 years. Annie.
Sandy, the leaders of Ireland, France, and Germany have all made official visits to China within the last month. Now, the Prime Minister is heading there too. After years of tense relations, a change appears to be brewing as Prime Minister Mark Carney gets set to try and address thorny trade issues in Beijing with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
No doubt there are going to be challenges, and the two countries won't see eye to eye on everything, but there are some common and shared interests.
Next week's visit will be the first by a Canadian Prime Minister in nearly a decade, and the first since China arrested and eventually released Canadians Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor in retaliation for Canada's detention of Huawei's Meng Wanzhou. One of the biggest flashpoints that's expected to come up, tariffs. Canada imposed a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles in 2024, a move met by China, who implemented a punishing 100% tariff on canola oil and a 25% tariff on certain pork, fish, and seafood products.
We hope that there'd be tariffs, removed immediately. But as I say, this, history has said that the removal of those tariffs does take some time.
But while this three-day trip is being viewed as a relationship reset, experts say Canada has to be cautious not to trigger any alarm bells in Washington, with negotiations on the North American trade deal set to begin later this year.
If we are seen to go too far down the path of befriending China, we know who in Washington is going to be irritated by that.
But while tariffs are expected to loom large, the Prime Minister's office says agriculture, energy, and international security, Sandy, will also be on the table.
All right, Annie, thank you. Okay. Let's check in with CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelas. And Vashi, Canada's had a tense relationship with China for the past 8 years, as we heard in Annie's report. So what would make Mark Carney come home after this trip looking good?
Well, what's so interesting, Sandy, is what Annie rightly pointed out, right? The last time that the Prime Minister went was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and that was before all the stuff that happened in the interim happened. And I remember the optimism at the time for a broader, more deepened relationship from a trade perspective with China. That trip ended up turning into a disaster. The idea of a free trade agreement ended up being shelved as a result of that trip. It didn't go well. So I say all that, you know, there are various factors at play. I say all that because the stakes are very high once again. The difference this time is, of course, the role of the United States and a lack of trust now between Canada and the United States and China and the United States. So how exactly the Prime Minister navigates that, if he is able to secure a more amplified trade relationship with China as a result that allows us to diversify away from the United States and get some of those punishing agricultural tariffs away, that would constitute a win. But like I said, that's no easy task.
Okay. Vashi, thank you so much. CTV's Vashi Capellas. The U.S. has rolled out new dietary guidelines encouraging Americans to consume more protein and full-fat dairy while scaling back on added sugars and ultra-processed foods.
The most significant reset of federal nutrition policy in history. Today, our government declares war on added sugar.
The new guidelines announced by Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. also come with a revised version of the food pyramid with less emphasis on whole grains. Now, the suggestions have sparked mixed reaction from experts who support cutting back on processed foods and sugars, but are concerned with the importance placed on red meats and dairy. Canada, like the U.S., is dealing with an unusually bad flu season, the worst in 3 years, and cases are still surging. Now, some hospitals are so maxed out, having run out of room, they're putting patients in dining rooms or garages. CTV's Abigail Beeman has been checking into this for us. And okay, Abigail, what did you learn?
Sandy, the official term being used is unconventional spaces. And with hospitals at more than 100% capacity, they're trying to find creative places to provide care.
In Ottawa, an old ambulance bay houses up to 20 patients. The hospital tells CTV News those people get the, quote, same high-quality care as in any other part of the building. While this Northern Ontario hospital at 119% capacity says it's using alcoves, hallways, and dining rooms.
I'm feeling so much cold. I was unable to sleep. Was having a 105 fever.
When that fever wouldn't break, Jatin went to hospital and felt lucky he only had to wait 3 hours.
All the holidays, I was like so sick.
We've had over 400 cases of influenza A in just my area, and that's more than double, if not twice, 2.5 times what we usually get. But it seems to have stabilized a bit.
We don't have a detailed picture nationally due to a holiday break. The Public Health Agency of Canada, though, says as of December 20th, the percentage of positive tests jumped to 32.4%, up from 28%. But that weekly jump shrunk from previous weeks, and the peak may be behind us.
The peak seems to have hit within the last 2 weeks. And the latest data that has been collected, specifically in Ontario, has shown that we're actually going to see a decrease. We should be expecting a decrease in cases. And that would likely result in a decrease in hospital admissions, a decrease in ICU cases.
Experts say it's still not too late to get that flu shot. Even if we clear this spike, a second spike usually comes in the spring, predicted to be a little earlier this year. Sandy?
All right, thank you for this, CTV's Abigail Beeman. Coming up after the break, a housing market in need of buyers.
I'm afraid not to be able to cover my mortgage and my living expenses.
The dire situation facing those who need to sell. Toronto and Vancouver were once Canada's red-hot real estate markets, but today both big cities have seen house sales and prices drop by more than 10% from a year ago. It could help with affordability issues if only sellers could find buyers. CTV's Adrian Gobriel now on what's going on and where the market could be headed. Adrian.
Sandy, real estate associations are calling 2025 one for the history books for all the wrong reasons if you're trying to sell a home.
These are some wild numbers, aren't they? Wild, wild numbers. Wow.
Wild and worrisome.
Imagine how many more people there are here now than there were 25 years ago. Yeah, these are spectacularly low numbers.
You have to go back to the year 2000 to find Toronto home sales lower than they are right now. In 2021, sales peaked at more than 127,000. Last year, that number plummeted to roughly 62,000, according to the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. On the receiving end are sellers like Hossein Hodadi.
It's really frustrating.
He bought and moved into the Stouffville home north of Toronto in July of 2022. Following renovations, mortgage rates spiked. He's listed the property to sell twice, once in 2024 and again in 2025. It still hasn't sold.
I'm afraid not to be able to cover my mortgage and my living expenses.
In Vancouver, the number of for-sale listings in 2025 hit a record high, not seen since the mid-90s. But sales are at historic lows. Residential sales in Metro Vancouver bottomed out at 23,800 last year, marking the lowest annual sales total in more than 20 years.
Vancouver is still extremely expensive real estate. It's more expensive than Toronto.
Sellers in both markets are experiencing a peculiar predicament.
Borrowing costs and selling prices have trended lower, and that's across most major market segments. Yet at the same time, sales were off.
Leaving many wondering what, if any, movement 2026 will bring for debt-heavy homeowners desperate to offload their pricey properties.
Some housing insiders expect stagnant sales to continue for at least the next 6 months as uncertainties around the economy and interest rates remain. Sandy.
All right, Adrian, thank you. New details are emerging about the 13-year-old boy who died after being attacked by dogs in Nova Scotia. This image shows Drew Nickerson, who suffered serious injuries in the attack. He was airlifted to a Halifax hospital where he later died. Police say the boy was riding his bicycle in a rural area when he was mauled by 3 large breed dogs. Those breeds have been confirmed as 2 Cane Corsos and a Rottweiler. All of them have been euthanized. A delegation of government officials and First Nations leaders are touring a Cree First Nation community in northern Manitoba, struggling with the impact of 4 days without power. People there are dealing with cracked floors and overflowing sewage due to frozen pipes bursting. The chief says plumbers, home inspectors, and electricians are desperately needed and has called for the deployment of the armed forces for support. Well, Saskatchewan has joined Ontario in getting creative, turning to virtual physicians to staff rural emergency rooms because of doctor shortages. It's a controversial idea under examination in other provinces. We asked CTV's Alison Bamford in Saskatoon to give us a sense of how it's working out. Alison.
Sandy, Outlook was an early adopter of the province's virtual physicians program. Essentially, it's the last line of defense against service disruptions and temporary closures at the town's ER. Emily True rang in the new year with a trip to the emergency department in Outlook, Saskatchewan, suffering from a severe migraine, needing to see a doctor, but the only one available was virtual.
There are people that are frustrated with it, but at the same time, a virtual physician is better than not being able to see anyone at all.
The town is one of several rural communities that struggles with doctor shortages. At times, the ER temporarily closes because of it. Other times, it's staffed with nurses and a virtual physician connected either by phone or video call.
It's just not the same. It's not necessarily bad, but sometimes seeing a physical person can be a little bit more comforting.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority has expanded its virtual physician program to 28 communities to help keep ERs open as much as possible.
There's certain conditions that a physician cannot treat virtually. I can't do sutures virtually, but can I treat somebody's heart attack virtually? Absolutely, I can.
In other parts of the province, primary care, physiotherapy, and ultrasounds are being performed virtually through Saskatchewan's Virtual Health Hub, using leading-edge technology and robotics to close the gaps in northern and remote communities.
I don't think we have any option but to innovate.
Critics are skeptical of virtual health care and its limitations, but experts say it's not meant to replace in-person health care, only to supplement it and assist when doctors aren't available on the ground. Sandy?
Alison Bamford. After the break, too close for comfort. The legroom situation that has airline customers kicking up a storm. Not everyone is happy about changes WestJet is making to some of its fleet. The airline is reducing legroom between seats. It says it's to keep prices low and offer options. But what about comfort and safety, people ask? CTV's Heather Wright spoke to passengers about their high-altitude squeeze. Heather.
Well, Sandy, some passengers we've spoken with aren't thrilled with these new changes and say they feel they're being forced to pay extra for things like adequate legroom, something many feel should be standard.
Dad, could you just straighten out your legs there? Impossible.
Economy class isn't known for its expansive legroom, but recent changes to some WestJet planes have some customers saying the airline has gone too far.
It was shocking to get in there and then have my dad, who is 6'3", so he's tall, but not like abnormal human height, physically not be able to fit in the seat.
Mom, how about you?
Amanda Schmidt posted this video to social media showing just how cramped their WestJet flight from Edmonton to Toronto was.
You can hear us joking and laughing in the video because it was like, it felt like a joke.
But the Schmidt family says not only were they uncomfortable, they also felt unsafe. In the fall, WestJet announced a new cabin configuration to offer different prices for seat selection and says the changes were rigorously tested and comply with all safety standards. The airline says the new configuration allows the carrier to keep airfares low. To continue to do so, we need to try new products. These aircraft accommodate an extra row by varying seat pitch between 38 and 28 inches. But some passengers say just because an airline can reduce legroom doesn't mean they should.
It's gotten worse, actually. Yeah. No, we were very uncomfortable flying out with them.
While others say they feel airlines are nickel and diming passengers on everything from legroom to luggage.
If there's too many little fees, it's better just to go with a different airline.
WestJet says they are monitoring the rollout of these new seat configurations and will take into account feedback from both passengers and staff on the changes that have been made. Sandy.
All right, Heather, thank you. And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.